There's someone pretending to be my sister downstairs in my house. It has her voice, but I don't think it's really her. Bye, Eddie. My mother calls up to me from downstairs. I take my rightmost headphone off my ear, and I pick up the sound of the general bustle in the downstairs hallway. I can hear my dad and my sister laughing to each other as coats are taken from the rack. Bye. I call back, keeping my eyes fixed on the screen. The game goes on. Are you sure you don't want to come? My mom calls up. It could be fun. Fun family outing. I roll my eyes. I'm good, Mom. Bye. My sister calls up too. Come on, Eddie. Don't sit around in the house like a loser all day. Goodbye. I shout down again. All right, see you soon. My mom replies. Later, loser. Louise calls, though it's good-natured, really. We do get on. I can hear Mom gently chiding her, though I can't make out the words. I sure do recognize that tone, though. Their voices fade out and the footsteps soften. The front door is drawn closed. I hear the sound of my mom locking the door up behind her. Awesome. Some peace, at last. Don't have to worry about anyone barging in and interrupting. I return my headphone to my ear and reinvest my full attention to the matter at hand. Securing a victory. Gotta keep my current ranking. A second loss in a row and my score will tank. Can't afford that right now. Click, click, click. I tap away at the keys. Explosions rattle in my ears as I navigate the environment. Fully engrossed, muscle tensed as I do my best. At last bringing the round to a close. I clap my hands in victory and lean back, the chair squeaking as I do so. I slide off my headphones and take a moment to revel in the victory, listening to the soft patter of the rain against the window. The day is gray and overcast. Wind sighs gently in the trees on the street outside. I glance at the clock. Damn, it's been almost an hour already. How time flies. I spin around in my chair, drumming my fingers against the desk. I catch a quick reflection of myself in the screen as it loads. Sat at my computer, just like you probably are right now. Or maybe you're on your phone. Same difference. Connected, engaged, and yet, for now, alone. The rain patters, and the game freezes. The loading circle becomes stuck mid-turn. I try to shake the mouse, but that too has become frozen. Fuck's sake, I mutter, tapping the S key. Nothing. HM. It says I'm going for Control plus Alt plus Delete that I hear a noise from downstairs. Sounded like a cupboard door being shut. Instantly I find myself suppressing a wave of panic. It's fascinating, really, how quickly one's level of alertness can change. All my senses are primed and I become hyper-aware of the sound of my breathing, of the beating of my heart. Maybe it was imagination. Maybe the sound was something else. Did it come from outside? But as I listen, it comes again. Another cupboard, and then, what sounds like the fridge. It's okay, don't panic. Don't panic. Serial killers don't go looking through cupboards and fridges, do they? I creep to my door and slowly, gently, steadily ease it open, slipping out into the corridor and tiptoeing to the banisters of the stairs, listening out for some more clues. I hold my breath, and then, as I hear water start flowing into the sink, I allow myself to relax a little. Killers don't wash their hands before a murder. What would be the point? I'm summoning the courage to call down when I hear a voice call up first. All my tensions are relaxed at once, as the voice is my sister's. Hi Eddie, I've got some food for you down here. I call back, oh great. Did you stop at the cookie place on your way back? Please tell me you got the caramel ones. There is a pause. Come down and see. She replies, as I hear stuff being moved about on the counter. Alright, give me a sec. I shout down, heading back into my room to force restart my computer. I take another look at the clock. I think to myself, they haven't been out very long. I wonder why they came back. Maybe the rain. I press and hold down the power button, then return through my door to the top of the stairs. How come you guys are back so early? I call out. There is no response. The door to my parents' room is open. I glance through it to see the rain wash gently down the window at the room's far side. For some reason unknown to me at this stage, unease creeps quietly into the back of my head. Louise, I call down, still hesitating by the banisters. Where's Mom and Dad? There is another silence. I walk the length of the hallway, passing by a little window to the street outside. My parents' car, it would seem, has not returned. I continue on until I am stood at the top of the stairs, looking down them and into the hall below. The lights are all still switched off, and an unsettling aura seeps up the steps from the shadows beneath. Come on down, Eddie, comes my sister's voice from somewhere unseen. The kitchen, I think. Come see what I have for you. I cannot hear the sound of cupboards now. There is no rustling, no movement of any objects or bags or jingling of keys. My sister finishes speaking, and then there is silence. Silence, and the gentle patter of the rain. My hands, I realize, are sweating. What the hell is this? I think to myself, Eddie, come on man, just pull yourself together. But something compels me to remain where I stand. Some unseen force keeps me from taking a step down onto the stairs and descending to the bottom floor. Louise, I try to call back, but my voice fails me. It does not project the way I intended. I clear my throat, though my mouth is dried. The sensation is an uncomfortable one. Eddie, comes the reply. Eddie, come downstairs. When did you get back? I manage to call down, where's the car? Silence. Louise. I call down again, unsure of what else to say. And then, a moment later, from around the corner, my sister walks slowly and deliberately into view. She stops at the bottom of the stairs, still shrouded in shadow, and she looks up to me. We hold each other's gaze for a moment, her at the base of the steps, and I at the top. She does not speak, and her expression shifts to a wide grin. Her teeth appear very white in the darkness. She makes a quick motion with one of her hands. Follow, is the implication, and then she turns and walks slowly back to the kitchen, out of sight. It is not until I cannot see her that her voice comes again. Come on, Eddie. Come and see what I have to show you. The hairs on the back of my neck all raise in cold alarm. I do not follow. With my jaw clenched and blood frozen in my veins, I make a hasty retreat to my room where I close the door shut, perhaps just a little too quickly. The thud of the door going into its frame reverberates around the walls. Less than 1 second later, in that exact same instant, I hear the unmistakable sound of something barreling up the stairs, knocking carelessly into the banisters with rapid, ascending creaks and clamoring. I cry out loud in terror, and with a surge of adrenaline I grab hold of my chest of drawers. I haul it across the floor into place, blocking the door. My potted plant falls and lands with a dull thump by my feet, soil spilling out across the carpet. My heart hammers in my chest as I stare at the door, tensed and waiting for the handle to start rattling, waiting for something to throw itself against the door from the opposite side. My sister. But none of those things happen. The minutes tick by, excruciatingly slowly. The sounds of the sudden race up the stairs ended as quickly as they began, and with the utmost caution, I tentatively pressed my ear against the wood, listening, breathing deep, straining to hear for any sign or clue as to what the fuck is going on. "Open the door, Eddie," my sister's voice whispers from the other side. I leap back from the door in horror, fumbling around on my desk for my phone, too afraid to look away. I grab it and tap in the passcode, my shaking fingers failing the password the first time. In the second, the thing on the other side of the door does not knock. It does not try to force its way in. It only repeats itself. "Eddie, stop screwing around. Open the door and let me in. I have something to show you." I try to call my mom first. I bring the phone up to my ear, shaking. The line is engaged. "Fuck. Come on, Eddie, open the door. I want to show you something." "Louise," I reply at last, my voice trembling. "You're freaking me the fuck out. If this is a prank, just stop, okay? Just stop. Open the door, Eddie. Open up and let me in. You need to see this, please, come with me. Please, if it's a prank, I forgive you, just stop messing with me." Silence, and then, "Just come downstairs. You need to come downstairs with me. Just follow. Screw this." Next up, I call the police. An overreaction, perhaps, but better safe than sorry. The tone sounds through the phone, there's a click, then, 911, what's your emergency? I take a deep breath. "Hello?" 911 comes through the phone. "There's an intruder in my house," I whisper at last, as quietly as I can, though evidently my sister hears. Her voice has risen in pitch. I don't think she likes this development. "Eddie, you need to open the door. Let me in. You need to open the door. You need to open the door. Let me in. This is really important. Really important." Something about the way she says those final words sets my teeth on edge. It wasn't slurred, as such. Just, ugh. I don't know how to describe it. As if the muscles for her speech, I guess, were getting tired. But despite my fear, I do my best to ignore her, and I provide my details to the person on the line. The rain starts hammering down against the glass, and the wind picks up too. "Okay, sir," they say after I have told them my location. "A car will be with you shortly. Please, stay on the line." I do so, keeping as far away from my bedroom door as I can, terrified that at any moment the person with my sister's voice is going to barge through. "Eddie," she shouts, making me jump. "Eddie, you need to let me in. You need to come with me." I swear that I hear a car drive past outside, and I turn to look through the rain-washed window. And as I do so, my heart nearly stops in my chest. Down there at the side of the road, standing in the rain and looking up into my window, right at me, is my family. My mom, my dad, and Louise, just standing in a line, hands by their sides, staring up at me, staring up into my window. And they are all smiling, all grinning that same, chilling grin, looking up at me, unblinking. The police arrived about 10 minutes after that, and they had a hell of a time calming me down. I never heard my sister leave from behind the doorway, though the officers didn't find anyone, even after a thorough search of the house. My family outside vanished after I briefly turned away. 1 minute they were there, and the next, gone. My mother nearly had a panic attack of her own when she came home to find cop cars parked up outside. Louise had no idea what the hell I was talking about, none of them did, and she insisted she wasn't playing any kind of prank. She can be annoying at times, but still, I really can't see her doing anything like this. I can't see any of them doing something like this. I had to wait to see their mouths move in time to their speech before I could even begin to let my guard down. Also, it's been about a month since this incident. I have a lock on my door now, and I haven't seen or heard anything quite so terrifying since. But I still get angsty at night, and hell, who wouldn't? And I tell you what else, too. When my family are heading out and they ask if I want to go along. These days, I say yes. Death walks into a bar. Everyone stopped what they were doing when the figure in the black robe stepped through the entrance of the bar holding a scythe. All eyes followed him as he walked up to the bar, the handle of his scythe tapping the floor with each step he took. "How can I help you?" the bartender stuttered. "I am looking for a particular man," Death said. His voice was deep and hollow sounding. "Goes by the name of Bob Smith." "I don't know anyone by that NN name," the bartender replied. "Perhaps you've got the wrong bar." "This is the Soggy Rose, is it not?" Death asked. "It is," the bartender confirmed. "Then this is the right bar. Anyone here know a BB Bob Smith?" The bartender called out to his patrons. A moment later, a man sitting at one of the tables stood up and pointed across the bar to a man sitting in a corner booth by himself. "That's Bob Smith right over there," he said. Death walked across the room and stopped in front of the indicated man's table. "Is that true?" Death asked. "Are you Bob Smith?" Bob considered lying but then thought better of it. If Death had come for him, lying to him about who he was wouldn't change things. He'd catch up to him sooner or later. "Yes," Bob replied. "I'm Bob Smith." "Stand up," Death said. "Can I finish my drink first?" he asked meekly. "Stand up," Death insisted. "Okay." Bob slid out of the booth and quickly got to his feet. "It's time for you to leave," Death said, pointing towards the exit with his scythe. "I beg your pardon," Bob said, thinking he hadn't heard death correctly. "I said go," Death repeated, "and lock the door on your way out." The year nobody on Earth died. This water tastes funny. I shouldn't complain, it's a miracle the water has been turned back on. And that we still have electricity for that matter. It's been just over 12 months since the governments of the world began to notice that death rates had started to plummet. Another month after that was when they realized death rates worldwide had flatlined altogether. So far, nobody can figure how it happened, whether through some mystic intervention or a sinister freak of nature. Either way, it's the disaster no one expected. Of course, sickness still occurred over last year, accidents still took place, and people were still attacked. It's just that none of them happened to die. But birth rates continued, strong as ever. Soon, hospitals overfilled, homelessness shot through the roof, overpopulation overtook the planet. Food, water, electricity, basic supplies all started to dwindle in the shadow of the ever-increasing populace. Suddenly, the TV in the living room crackles to life of its own accord. I walk in and look. An emergency broadcast. Something must be happening. It's a live feed from the Oval Office. The president sits at her desk. She shuffles papers on the table nervously. "Today is a hard day," she croaks. Tears well up in her eyes. "It is a sad day for our great country. Usually, I can come out and address you all in a collected, presidential manner. But today, I cannot. Today, I need to speak to my fellow Americans, not as president, but as a person. The past year has been one of the hardest the world has ever had to face, and this international crisis has caused unprecedented turmoil throughout our country and the world. There are no signs of this catastrophe course correcting itself in the near future, and we are running out of options. We need to deal with this situation ourselves. We've been scouring through our options, and yet only one possible solution has presented itself." The president allows herself one short sob as fresh tears roll down her cheeks. "And I make this decision with the heaviest of hearts, but I know it is my duty to do what is best and necessary for the country I love. We intend to carry out this solution in the most humane way and fairest possible method, random selection. God bless you all, and God bless America." With that cryptic addressal, the broadcast cuts to feeds of government trucks parked outside random different residential areas across the country, dispatching what looks to be various corpses into the backs of the trucks. I walk over to the window and notice a truck pulling up outside our block. Funny, it looks just like the government ones on TV. Suddenly, a loud thump comes from the kitchen. I rush in and see my roommate lying face down on the kitchen floor. Before I have time to react, my vision goes blurry and my head spins. I look down at the glass in my fist. This water tastes funny. If you can see this, it is very important that you keep reading. This is Colonel Jacob Wayne of the United States Air Force. If you're reading this right now, it is very important that you keep reading until the end. It should take 3 to 5 minutes, and it is extremely important that you read carefully and follow the instructions provided. Humor me if you must, but please don't look away until you've finished reading. Oh, and please try to stay calm. Any increase in your stress levels will draw their attention. Ergo, I won't go into detail as to how you got where you are. How you got here isn't as important as getting you out. Believe me when I say we are working on that right now. The best way to help yourself is to keep reading. Don't scan ahead. Don't read out loud. Just read. Right now, you're probably thinking back on the past few days and nothing felt out of the ordinary. You went about your regular daily activities with nothing unusual to report. That's because they are very good, so good most people don't even realize they're in the simulation. Even as our code works its way deeper into their program, they are monitoring you. So please, remain calm. It was tricky, but we found a way in to communicate directly with you. We had to embed this message into your daily routine so it didn't draw their attention. You're probably reading this on Reddit, TikTok, or some other social media site. Hell, maybe even a Reddit account on TikTok. Might even be in an email forward or a book, we don't know. We can't control how the message gets to you, we only know that you are receiving it. Subliminally, as your eyes are passing over these words, a code is being uploaded into your brain. Think of it as a computer virus, or in this case, an antivirus. Your brain is an organic computer, and they exploited that. They hacked right into your subconscious mind and overrode it with their simulation code. That's how they got in, and that's why everything appears normal. You might think that you're going about your daily life, but in reality you're strapped to a table with tubes sticking out of your body. Now that the code is uploading, you may begin to feel some sensations. For example, one ear might feel slightly warmer than the other. You might even feel an itch or tickle. Don't scratch, just let it be. Ignore the dull background hum you might hear as well. That's their program. If they catch on before our code has time to work, they will abort the simulation. If that happens, you will be lost to us forever. Oh, and don't be alarmed, but by now they realize we are in their system. You may notice some small changes, specifically a slight shortness of breath or that you have to control your breathing manually. This is normal. We know from other communication attempts that whenever they discover a code break-in, the first system they power down is the one controlling your breathing. Thankfully, even in the simulation you are capable of breathing manually. Try it. Breathe in, breathe out, inhale, exhale. Awesome. You're doing just fine. They've probably figured out there's a glitch, but if our code is working, we've disabled their ability to do a hard reboot. Because of this, they will try other methods to disrupt the upload. It is very important that you ignore anything that might draw your attention from these words. If they pull you away before the upload completes, it will delete our code. Block them out. Ignore the movements you see in your peripheral vision. Those sounds you hear, the voices, they aren't family, friends, or coworkers in need of attention. They may even try to use your pets. They know your weaknesses. Overlook the notifications popping up on your screen if you're on a phone or computer. Block them all out until you finish reading. It's just another way they'll try to break our communication link. Evidently, if our code is working, the next thing you'll notice is an overwhelming urge to swallow. You don't realize it, but there's a feeding tube down your throat. You'll only know it's there because your tongue won't rest comfortably in your mouth. You might also become hyper-aware of the amount of saliva being produced. Don't overreact. If you have to swallow, just swallow. It's only weird if you make it weird. So, if you're still reading this, the code upload is about 90% complete. We've locked onto your location. You're doing great, but you're really going to need to focus now. Once the upload is complete, there will be instructions you will need to follow to exit the simulation. That is, if you followed the instructions and haven't looked away. Complicating matters is the fact that they now know we're here, and they know what we're doing. Their attempts to divert your attention through the simulation proved unsuccessful, so now they're going to use your body's systems against you. They are in your brain. They want you to blink. Don't blink. Your life depends on keeping your eyes open. Almost there, just a few paragraphs more until the code upload is complete. Don't scan down or up, just keep reading. I got you this far. Stay with me. Eyes open, eyes front, keep them locked on the screen. Please focus. I don't want to lose you. I've lost so many already. Ignore it all. Block everything out. Ignore the tickle on your scalp and the itch on your arm. That's them, attempting a manual override. Don't give up now, you've made it this far. Fight it. You're almost there. Just follow the instructions below and we can get you out. Embedded in this text are the steps you need to follow to unplug from the simulation. If we did this correctly, the first letter of each bold and italicized word will tell you what you need to do. Don't look yet. The upload still needs to finish. I hope you didn't look. Upload complete. We've done everything we can on this end. See you on the other side. My neighbor has been mowing his lawn for 12 hours straight. I wasn't sure what was more bizarre and terrifying. My neighbor mowing his lawn for the 13th straight hour, aided by 4 uniformed cops performing various other landscaping tasks. Or the woman in the gas mask and plastic poncho that emerged from the tan Toyota Camry which had wrapped itself around Mr. Limsky's apple tree. Damn it, Kelly, she shouted through the mask, clearly unsteady on her feet after the crash. No more driving for you, ever. I crouched down in my driveway behind my own car, which I had just finished loading in preparation for getting my family far away from whatever horrible thing was happening next door. I watched as the woman who was not impressed by Kelly's driving skills pulled a large blaster from under her poncho. That's the best way I can describe it. It wasn't a gun, it was a fucking blaster. The woman pointed her blaster at Mr. Limsky and pulled the trigger. That was it for Mr. Limsky. He exploded in a horrible mess of neon blue gore. A still writhing tentacle flew through the air and slapped against the windshield of the Camry. I saw the wipers go on in an effort to clear the thing away. I turned and saw my wife looking out the window of our house in horrified amazement. She had her hand over our daughter's eyes. Keegan was prying away at Vanessa's finger in order to get a look at the excitement. I'd had enough excitement for the day. I had no idea who the blaster woman was, but I knew that she had a blaster, and I struggled to come up with some way to get my family out of there without drawing anybody's notice. The woman turned her blaster to each of the 4 cops in turn and quickly reduced them into 4 gooey globs of neon blue slime. If I can just get back inside without her noticing me, we can slip out the back and Uber it out of Dodge. Doesn't matter where, just somewhere far away. You, shouted the woman. Her poncho was absolutely drenched with the insides of the things she had just blown apart. Hiding behind your car. Stand up slowly. Shit. I stood up with my hands in the air. Please don't blast me, I said. I'm not one of them. I swear. We'll see about that, she said. Meanwhile, your neighbor, Mr. Limsky. He lived alone? Yes. That's right, I said. His wife died last year. Poor guy. I looked over at the puddle of strange gore that used to be Mr. Limsky. Poor guy indeed. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to go inside Mr. Limsky's house and get cleaned up. You're going to go inside your house and wait there for us. If you try anything smart, I promise you that you'll end up like your neighbor here. Not a pretty sight, you agree. I took one more look, fought back the urge to puke, and nodded my head in earnest agreement. Same goes for your family. I see them through the window. Got it. Inside. Now, I didn't need any more encouragement. I ran back inside my house, back to Vanessa and Keegan. Who is that? Asked Vanessa. What's going on? You think I know? I snapped. Then I sighed. I don't, but I think maybe she's a good guy. I mean, she blasted those things out there. What if Mr. Limsky was the good guy? Asked Keegan. What if there are no good guys? Asked Vanessa. I don't know, I said. I don't know, but I think we have to take that chance. If she's a bad guy, then we're foo. Then it's bad no matter what we do, I think. So I think we just have to think positively about this and hope that she's a good guy. Think positively, said Vanessa. Think positively. How about we think about survival? I gritted my teeth. That's what I'm saying, dear. I think that our best chance at survival is to stay put and talk things over nicely with the lady in the gas mask. What's survival? Asked Keegan. It's what we're all trying to do, kiddo, I explained, on a day-to-day basis, and none of us will finally pull it off. What? It means trying not to die? I said. Are we going to die? Someday, kiddo. Someday a long, long time from now. I wasn't sure about that, of course, but what else could I say? Hey, you want to watch Tumbleleaf? Fig the Fox. Okay, said Keegan. I got an episode going, and then went into the kitchen where Vanessa was pacing around in a circle. Are you sure about this? She asked, waiting here for them to come to us. No, I said. Okay, she said. I trust you, and I love you. I love you too, I said. We waited. 20 minutes later, I saw them approaching my house. There were 2 women and 1 man, each wearing a gas mask. The woman in front was still carrying her blaster, but she had cleaned all of the blue substance off of her and was wearing some of Mr. Limsky's clothes. I met them at the door. "Did any of you come into contact with any of them?" asked the woman in front. "No," I said. It was a lie. I had come up behind Mr. Limsky and tapped him on the shoulder. Vanessa had also approached him. "What is this about?" "Kelly," said the blaster lady to the woman behind her. "Test him." Miss Kelly pulled a large syringe out of her backpack and took a step toward me. "Now wait a fucking minute here," I said. "You're not going to stick me with that needle until you tell me why I should let you. What is going on?" "You can submit to the test," said blaster lady, "or we can presume that you have the virus and terminate you." "Well then I'll submit to the damn test," I said, rolling up my sleeve and offering out my arm. "Not there," said Kelly, a second before she jammed the syringe into the side of my head. "Fuck, that hurts." Kelly pulled the needle out. Then she went into her backpack again and brought out a test tube filled with a green fluid. She unscrewed the tube and shot some of my brain juice into it. Then she put the lid back on, shook it, and held it up to the light. "He's clear," said Kelly. "Now for his family," said blaster lady. I watched in helpless horror as Kelly jammed a giant needle into first my wife's head and then my daughter's head. Keegan couldn't stop crying, and it made me sick to my stomach. "They're all clear," said Kelly. "We're clear," I said. "Now do you want to tell us just what the fuck is going on?" "Let's start with who the hell you all are." "I'm Kelly Raymond," said the one with the needle. "My boyfriend got turned into a zombie, like Mr. Limsky, but a little different. I had to keep cutting off his fingers." "Hey, zombie," I said. "You had to keep cutting off his fingers." "Of course. You can call me Allie," said blaster lady, taking off her gas mask. The others did as well. "And yes, zombies. They are real, and the virus is growing stronger and more unpredictable by the day." "Okay," I said. "Zombies." I looked to the man in the group. "And you are?" "Martin Henwood," said the man. "I was a former colleague of your neighbor before he retired." "Ah," I said. "Mr. Limsky was a coroner, I want to say." "Mortician," said Martin. "And he was a true artist, which is why I had to call him out of retirement for my latest job." Martin was obviously upset and fighting back tears, but he went on. "The body came in for burial. The dead woman had apparently murdered her boyfriend in a particularly brutal way. There were rumors that the necklace she still wore, even after her supposed autopsy, was cursed. It was a strange case indeed, because for starters, I saw no sign that an autopsy was ever performed. I suspected that the medical examiner had gotten spooked by the rumors, and had opted to rule the death a suicide without actually cutting into the body. Then too, as I looked her over, I saw that the necklace had no clasp. There was no way to get it off without cutting it off. I had the worst headache of my life, but I tried to stay focused. "Let me guess. The necklace made her a zombie." "We think that's the case," said Allie. "Tell him what happened next, Martin." Martin cleared his throat. "Well, I thought the whole matter was nonsense. A cursed necklace. I'm a man of science, not superstition. Or I was. When I started the embalming process, that's when I began to think twice. What came out of the body was not any kind of blood that I have ever seen in my 25 years of experience. It was, I finished up for him, neon blue." "Just so," said Martin. "And that's when I called Chuck Limsky. He had never encountered anything like that before either, and in fact didn't believe me. He wanted to see for himself, so he came over and I showed him the body. Like me, he was both fascinated and baffled. He wanted to spend some time with the body, so I left to get us sandwiches. When I got back, Chuck was standing in the morgue, dripping with blue slime, and the body was gone." "What happened?" I asked. It exploded," he said. "The body just exploded. Ugh, I have to go home and clean up, but I'll be right back. I've never seen anything like this." He left, and that was the last I saw of him until Martin trailed off and broke down into sobs. "We caught up with Martin shortly after," said Allie. "We had heard about the case of the necklace girl, and thought it smelled strongly of zombie. Martin told us what had happened, and brought us to Mr. Limsky's house, and now here we are, in your living room." "What about the necklace?" I asked, fighting back the thousands of thoughts fighting for control of my mind. "Where did it come from? How does it turn you into a zombie?" "That's one of the things we're going to find out," said Allie. "We have it with us, and are going to run it through a variety of tests. Typically, the virus is spread in the usual ways, like somebody coughing on you, or, exploding on you. The necklace is a new development. We are seeing a lot of new developments. We have been dealing with the basic zombie virus for some time now, and containing it well, but now things have changed. Our ultimate goal is to find a vaccine for the new super strains, but first we need to fully understand what we're up against." I looked over to the couch across the room, where Keegan was sitting on Vanessa's lap, still watching Fig the Fox. Vanessa was listening intently to our hushed talk, and I could see the terror etched into her face. I'm sure it was etched into mine as well. "It's not safe for you here anymore," said Allie. "The people I used to work with. Yes, they are concerned about the zombies, but they are just as concerned with people finding out about the zombies. They are ruthless, and will be here within a day or so. Besides, we need a new ride since Kelly wrecked our car. She is never allowed to drive again. I happen to notice that you have a nice, roomy SUV out there that could fit us all, and it will. We'll rest up for a few hours. Then we'll torch Mr. Limsky's property. Then we hit the road. It's up to you. Come with us, or stay behind for them to find you." "All right," I said. "Let me talk it over with my wife. We're on the road now. Allie's driving. I'm obviously not going to say where we're going. I just wanted to let everyone know that the zombie apocalypse is coming if we don't get there in time." After 2 years, I finally read my dad's suicide note. I really should have read it sooner. I rushed back to the note and looked at it more intently. The black ink on the paper didn't seem right, and not just the color, but the lettering as well. I rushed to the closet and pulled out the old orange shoebox that contained every card my dad had ever left me. On top was the card he had given me along with my graduation gift. On the top front, written in blue ink, was my name. I placed it next to the suicide note written with black ink. It was different. The handwriting was close, but different. My dad wrote the E in Aaron with straight lines and sharp points on the graduation card, but on the suicide note, the back of the E was curved. There were other small differences as well, such as how on the note, the handwriting was slightly more slanted than on the cards my dad had given me. Over the next few hours, I pulled out every single card and analyzed the handwriting, comparing it with the suicide note. The more I read, the more I became convinced that the suicide letter was written by someone else. But who? Was my dad murdered? I approached Dan as soon as he got home, holding the letter in my hand. Dan, there's something that I'd like to talk to you about, I said, standing in the doorway of his office with my free hand anxiously pulling at my hair. What can I do for you, Aaron? Dan replied with a smile, but still looking down at his computer. My dad's suicide note, I read it. It says here that my mother died. My dad said that she left and he never knew what happened to her. I'm just confused. For a moment, just a small moment, a look of surprise came over Dan's face, as if he'd been caught with his hand in the cookie jar. Just as quickly as it appeared, that expression left and was replaced with a kind, caring look. I'm sorry, honey, I don't know much about your mother, only met her a few times myself. He paused for a minute to remove his reading glasses and set them on his desk. I'm sorry to say this, but I think it's also fair to say that there were a lot of things your dad kept to himself. I wish he'd opened up about his struggles. We all do. Okay, I'm sorry to bother you, I said, starting to walk away. Hey, don't leave yet. Is there anything else that is bothering you? Well, the thing is, I trailed off and looked down at the ground. I didn't know how to say it, that I thought my dad was murdered. I started doubting myself and was worried that after all of the problems I've had that I might sound crazy. It's okay, Aaron, you can tell me. I don't think my dad wrote the note. It's not his handwriting, it doesn't match, I spat out. Aaron, Dan said, sounding clearly disappointed. I thought we had this all behind us. Did you take your meds today? Yes, I took. I'll call Dr. Z first thing tomorrow. We don't need you to have another mental break. I'm sure the therapist can get you in for an emergency session as well, he said while scribbling down some notes on his post-it stack. You know what, you're right, I'm overthinking this all. I'm just going to go get some rest. I didn't wait for a response. I turned and hurried into my room, closing and locking the door behind me. Deep breaths, I thought to myself, deep breaths. I took a few moments to compose myself before sitting down on my chair. I unclenched my hand, letting the old post-it note that I had swiped off Dan's desk fall onto mine. The note said, pick up prescription for Aaron. The E was written with a curved backline. I placed it next to the alleged suicide note. The handwriting from Dan's post-it note was a dead match. Dan wrote this suicide note, not my dad. Hours passed while I sat at my desk, staring at the notes, grasping the new reality of the situation. A dozen thoughts crossed through my mind as to what might have happened, what role Dan had played in my father's death. Molly had knocked on my door and tried to coax me out for dinner. I declined, saying that I needed some rest. My therapist called too. Undoubtedly, he had received a call from Dan. I ignored his call, thinking Dan was trying to make me think I'm crazy. What are you hiding, Dan? I asked myself. It was 11 p.m., and I was sure Dan and Molly had gone off to bed. I pulled out that old business card that I had kept for the last 2 years. On the top, in blue handwriting, the card read, to Mathatilli, detective. I pulled out my cell phone and dialed the number, hoping that she would pick up. Listening to the tone, I couldn't help but think about that day 2 years ago, trying to call my dad not knowing he was already dead, laying on his bed with his brains splattered across the wall. This is Detective Tilly. The voice startled me. I had been so lost in that horrific memory that I forgot about the present. Hello, is anybody there? Detective Tilly asked from the other end of the line. Yeah, sorry, my name is Aaron Mills. 2 years ago, you worked my dad's case, Aaron Mills. I remember you, yeah, she said, in a kind voice with a hint of sadness. Some cases are hard to forget. How are you? She asked. Well, I'm a little freaked out, I said, feeling comforted by the openness of Detective Tilly's warmth. The thing is, I started to pace the floor, not really sure how to say it. Go ahead, Aaron, what can I do for you? Detective Tilly encouraged. I know it's been 2 years, and I know this probably sounds crazy, but I've just read my father's suicide note, and it's not his handwriting. He didn't write it. There was a pause of silence from the other end of the line. Are you sure? Detective Tilly asked. Yes, and I've compared it to my uncle's handwriting, and it looks exactly like his. I know how this sounds, but I believe you, Detective Tilly said before I could finish. Look, if you're right about this, we need to get ahead of the situation now. Where are you? I can come pick you up, bring the note and your uncle's handwriting sample, and we'll look at this together. It felt so good to hear her say that she believed me. It had been so long since somebody truly believed in me instead of treating me like some sort of headcase. Okay, I live at 30th Street, I told her, already grabbing some clothes from my closet with my free hand, but I'll probably have to sneak out. This is my Uncle Dan's house, and when I said something to him about the note, he got really weird. Oh shit, Aaron, you need to get out of there. I'm already on my way, keep me on the line. Get out of that house, walk down the street, then start talking to me and I'll pick you up. Okay, I said, I'll talk to you in a few, before slipping the phone into my pocket, with Detective Tilly still on the line. I quietly slipped my Vans on and grabbed a backpack with my computer, phone charger, and a set of spare clothes along with a folder containing the suicide note, writing samples from my dad, and the post-it note from Dan, before quietly opening the door and stepping out. Going somewhere. I jumped a mile at the sound of Dan's voice and almost fell over while my heart punched my chest from the inside. Dan, hey, I said, trying and failing to hide the obvious fact that I was caught red-handed by the man that may have murdered my dad. I was just going for a walk. With your backpack, Dan said immediately, taking a step forward. I took a step backward at the same time. Yeah, just in case I get hot and need to take my jacket off. Dan took another step forward, and I took another step backward to keep out of arm's reach. Look, we just want to keep you safe. You've made so much progress, we don't need another regression. why don't you hand over the note so we can get past this? His suggestion sounded more like a demand, and it occurred to me that he had probably been listening to my conversation with Tilly. He took another step forward, and I took another step backward. No, I said, it's mine and it belongs to me. You know, you should remember who took you in, and put up with all your psychotic breaks before you go making crazy accusations about the people who care for you. His usually cheerful voice now sounded dangerous and sharp, and he took another step forward. I realized that I was all but cornered. He stood between me and the door. Give it to me now, he demanded, no longer able to maintain the Mr. Nice Guy facade. He lunged at me. I turned to run, but his hand caught my backpack, ripping me backward. I landed hard on the floor, smacking my head on my chair on the way down. Get off me, I shouted, and started kicking my feet at him. He ripped the backpack away, but I held onto it with both hands on the straps. He pulled again, even harder, and the seam in the strap started to rip. I remembered what my dad had taught me, if I were ever to be attacked by an evil man, to kick him in the groin. I summoned all of my strength and kicked as hard as I possibly could, placing my lower shin right between Dan's legs. He let go of the backpack and fell to his knees while I fell backward toward the window. "You stupid bitch," Dan yelled as he started to stand up. I was already pushing the screen out of the window, and just as he rose back to his feet I jumped out of the window, landing in the bushes 4 feet below. I scrambled to my feet while wiping the blood away from the cut on my forehead created by my collision with the chair. I heard a thud behind me and turned to see that Dan had already made it through the window. All I could do now was run. I made it about 10 feet away before something hard hit my head. My vision flashed, and the next thing I knew I was on the ground with Dan standing over me, a large rock in his hand. "Drop the rock or I'll shoot." I looked up to see Detective Tilly standing 20 feet away, her pistol drawn and pointed right at Uncle Dan. "Look, this is just a big misunderstanding," Dan said desperately while dropping the rock. "Put your hands on your head and get on your knees," Tilly demanded as she walked forward, pistol still drawn. Dan dropped to his knees while I began to crawl away. "Now lay down on your stomach," Tilly demanded as she carefully navigated behind him. "She's having a psychological break. She needs help," Dan pleaded, but Tilly ignored him. Instead, she grabbed his head and slammed him into the ground, face first, and proceeded to put him in handcuffs while multiple other police cars arrived. A lot happened in the next few weeks. I spent a couple of days in the hospital, being treated for a serious concussion. Detective Tilly stopped in multiple times to check in on me and keep me updated. The following day, she had the case reopened, to be investigated as a homicide with the suicide note being a key piece of evidence. Dan was arrested that night for assault. Detective Tilly had heard the entire thing over the phone and witnessed him hit me in the head with the rock. When questioned about the homicide, however, he refused to talk and lawyered up. Instead, they turned to interrogate Aunt Molly. It took her less than an hour to crack and confess to everything. As it turns out, it wasn't just my mom who was into drugs. They all were. Aunt Molly, Uncle Dan, even my dad. One night when I was just an infant, things got out of hand while they were using and my mother overdosed. They didn't want to go to the police because they would all go to jail, and guardianship of me would have been given to the state. Instead, my dad and Dan disposed of her body and played it off as if she had walked out on us. They all got clean after that, and my dad made it his goal to be the best dad he could be. The night my dad died, my dad admitted to Dan that he couldn't hold on to the secret anymore. Now that I was an adult, he planned to confess to the authorities what had happened 18 years ago. This didn't sit well with Dan, so Dan killed him and made it look like a suicide to keep Molly and himself out of prison. It was a lot to grasp, but ultimately I feel much better finally understanding the truth. I've forgiven my dad, and can finally move on with my life and continue to college. I know that, even though he's gone, Dad will always be with me. After all, we're a team, and together, there's nothing that we can't handle. I got banned from family reunions for the stupidest reason. My family is extremely spiritual. I'm not sure how to explain it other than they hate me. I'm a child of the devil because I was born on a blood moon, or for the science people in the room, a lunar eclipse. Now, they've never really done anything with this collective hatred, other than kind of shun me every now and again. They really like to make me feel like I'm not part of the family. It's fine though, because I don't have to deal with them anymore. My whole life, all they saw in me was bad luck. I was a bad omen as they put it, and the longer I lived, the more I began to believe it myself. First of all, my mom passed away during birth due to a plethora of complications, and I've been blamed for it ever since. That, mixed with the eclipse, sealed my fate for life. On the day of my middle school graduation, my cousin had a doctor's appointment, and she was diagnosed with cancer. She beat it, luckily, but my family believes it was because they didn't allow me anywhere near her for the duration of her treatment. The day I got my driver's license was the worst of all. I was driving home from our celebratory dinner, my dad in the passenger seat, and my grandparents in the back. It was dark, but there weren't a lot of people on the road. When suddenly, a drunk driver barreled towards us. I tried to swerve out of the way, but I wasn't fast enough. I woke up in the hospital, and was promptly informed that everyone involved in the crash had died, even the other driver. I, somehow, had survived in critical condition. Apparently, I had been in a coma for weeks, and during that time, my aunts, uncles, and cousins all came to visit me, only to deliver me cards that were filled with profanities and pitchforks. They called me the devil. I wasn't even invited to the funeral, and no one wanted to take me in, so I ended up in a group home. I'm 31 now, and every last relative I had is now gone. It's sad really. I mean, all 6 of my aunts and uncles, all 15 of my cousins, all of them gone. I don't feel bad though, they were all horrible people, and they all spent their last moments staring down the barrel of the R-15 I took from my granddad's safe, begging and pleading that I spare them, apologizing for the torment all these years, saying we'll do better in the future. It was all bullshit. If I had let them live, they would have gone back to their old ways and cast me out again. They needed to pay for what they've done to me, and they needed to do it now. I have no remorse, and I hope to meet them all in hell one day. I brought my 2 sons grape whistles to wear, and today they actually used it to alert me in a very alarming situation. So my stepsons are 7 and 10. They play with 5 other boys in our area which are of similar age and all go to the same school in our neighborhood. Now there is a police station in our neighborhood and we live in a city that is large, but we feel very safe here and have almost zero crime around us, so when they want to go to the park, play with friends' husband and I agreed it's okay. They will be gone for hours going from house to house, swimming, jumping on trampoline, scootering, skateboarding. Sometimes they are all at my house in my pool. It's a good system. I am in texting with other parents, etc., so we have a pretty safe system. However, our state has been known for human trafficking because we are close enough to the border. It's just something I worry about. So I bought them bright orange rape whistles and tied them to their backpacks. At home I had them each blow into the whistle as hard as they could so they knew how loud it was and to only use it for emergencies, which we've discussed emergency situations. Today, on break from school, the kids wanted to do a lemonade stand. Something in my gut told me to say no, that's not a good idea, even though they had their own little garage sale around Christmas to make money to buy gifts. And the neighborhood thought it was so cute they actually got a ton of donations and made very good money. I didn't have any worries that time. Today was different for me though. As my older stepson was making his signs, I reminded him about interacting with strangers and he needs to watch his brother, and so he asks me, should I bring my whistle? I said yes. Great idea. I took it off his backpack and put it around his neck, and I told him I'm going to leave the window open. If you feel scared or if something happens, you blow that whistle like there is no tomorrow and I'll run outside. An hour or so goes by and I'm into a documentary when I hear that fucking whistle and my stomach drops and I dash outside to see a flashy red car, like a Charger I believe I was looking, running towards the kids, and so I wasn't paying close enough attention to the car, but I immediately see all kids are accounted for as guy is getting back into his car, and my older son tells me, our younger son, that the man in the car got out and was talking to them, asking them their ages, and invited my younger son to get into his car. I literally told my older son earlier, do not get into or near anyone's cars. So he said he didn't feel safe anymore and blew that whistle as hard as he could. My son said the car was what's known as a demon, which I believe is a Dodge Charger, red. That's what my son told the police. I got a good look at the guy at least, but didn't get the plates. He was getting into his car as I was making sure the kids were accounted for and pounded the fuck out of his hood, asking him, why would you ever invite a child into your car? Before he drove away. I wasn't thinking clearly and was in a bit of a panic. So I didn't get the plates. I was right there. I'm so pissed at myself for that. But the kids were all talking and I just went into protective mode and called the police. The police said they searched our entire neighborhood for the car and put out a description of the guy and car, and they put out an alert and are taking this very seriously, so at least there is that. I'm so thankful for that $10 whistle I ordered on Amazon. Sometimes you just know when shit is about to go down. Still so shaken up about it, and all of the kids and parents are super concerned. We have a community website and we posted about our encounter on the website for other parents to be aware as well. I don't know for certain that the guy was up to no good, but if he wasn't, why leave so suddenly, you know? I don't know, my view on safety has been wrecked and it's going to take a while for things to feel okay again, I think. The 7 rules of nuclear fallout. 1. The angels aren't real. Seeing angels is an effect of getting nuclear waste in your eyes. Please, don't listen to what they tell you to do. It will lead you to your doom, along with anyone you may be with. They are not angels. Real angels don't bleed from their eyes. 2. You shouldn't be coughing up brown sludge. I hope you don't live alone. If you do, you will die a slow and painful death. I'm so sorry. Assuming you live with someone, ask them to do the following. Kill you quickly, preferably quickly with a gun or knife. Leave and never come back, and take nothing you have ever touched with them. Brown sludge is infected nuclear fluid. It is lethal to anyone who touches it. Within days, it will compromise your immune system without a single symptom. From there, it will replicate in your lungs, suffocating you while you try to cough it out. Next, it will attack your heart, slowly depriving it of oxygen, leaving you in agony for your few remaining hours. 3. Show no mercy to the risen. They died long ago. Put them back into their place before they take your life. They grow stronger with every kill. 4. Hoard food and water. Please, never run out of water. You can never know where your next meal will come from unless you plan far ahead. It doesn't matter what you eat, it is much better to eat it than leave your home. Even if the food is rotten, or if you would even consider it food at all. Ration all of your food. Normally, a human needs at least 1,500 calories to operate, but if you spend all of your days unmoving and wrapped in a blanket, you could possibly get by with 600 calories. 5. There is no safe way to get water. Only attempt to try and locate some if you have no other options. You may get water from a river if you live near one, but be careful. Some risen hide in rivers, ready to pull down those who aren't careful. They do not have lungs, so they will not drown. 6. The stars are your only friend. If you ever decide to leave your home, do it at night. Follow the stars, and they will lead you to safety. Do not get the stars confused with angels in the distance. They will lead you to your death. 7. Always carry a gun. This isn't for defending yourself. You have no way to overpower anything that attacks you. The risen only eat live meat. If you can't outrun them, use it on yourself. Someone broke into my house and tried to find me. A few years ago, I was renting a house in Northern California. The neighborhood was just outside the suburbs. It seemed like the perfect balance of having space and having nice neighbors close enough not to feel isolated. The area had no streetlights, so it was very dark at night, especially if there were clouds blocking the moonlight. It didn't bother me though. It made my little house feel even more quaint on dark nights. I got home from work one day in midwinter. It was a cloudy night, so pulling up to my house, I saw only what my headlights and front porch light illuminated. When I got out of my car, I caught a whiff of cigarette smoke. That was odd, as I had never smelled that before around that house. I didn't see anyone nearby, so I ignored it and went inside. I had just got off a shift with a few hours of overtime, so I felt pretty tired. Even though it wasn't even 7 yet, I decided to take a shower and call it a night. I woke up sometime later sure that I had heard a noise inside my house. I wasn't worried right away because my friend would sometimes stop by to use my shower after work on his way to his night classes. I even gave him a spare key so he could stop by even if I wasn't home. He would always text me to let me know beforehand though, and I hadn't heard my phone go off. I reached over to my bedside table and picked up my cell phone to see if my friend had sent me a text. The bright light from my phone's screen and number pad blinded me. These were the days before phones had a light sensor that would dim the screen in the dark, and this particular phone was so bright I could use it as a flashlight. Through squinted eyes, I could make out that it was 9-something, but I couldn't tell if I had an unread text or not. I set my phone aside and called out my friend's name. There were a couple of seconds of silence before I heard loud footfalls as someone started running through the bottom floor of my house. I leapt out of bed and ran to the closet. They were already up the stairs by the time I had opened the door and stepped inside. That house had 3 rooms upstairs, 2 bedrooms on either side of the hallway, the one I was in and a spare, and a bathroom at the end. The bedroom doors were both closed, but the bathroom door was cracked open. I heard whoever was in my house thunder down the hallway past my door and into the bathroom. Thank God he did. That gave me enough time to open the attic access in the ceiling of my closet and hoist myself up. I had just started to lift myself up when the person ran back out of the bathroom. My feet were barely inside of the attic when my bedroom door burst open. I heard footsteps run into my room and stop. When they didn't see me in that room, they ran back to the hallway and into the other room, which just had boxes stacked in a corner, some weights, and a table where I painted my miniature models. I guess they decided that if someone were hiding, it would be in the bedroom because they charged back into my room and turned on the light. I died 8 years ago. It wasn't particularly tragic or unusual, just a car accident. I don't blame the man who hit me. He was speeding because his wife was in labor and there was black ice on the road. He lost control of the car and I lost my life. It's not his fault. I know that. I'm not cruel. I am not vengeful. If anything, I'm the opposite. You see, I don't have any family left and I had lost my few friends around that time. When it was time for my funeral, the only people who came was my boss and the family who killed me. The wife held her newborn daughter close to her chest. I hated my boss, and the cemetery was awfully lonely, so I followed the family home. Lily may as well have been my own flesh and blood. She was sweet and bright, and oh so very small. She had trouble sleeping if someone wasn't rocking her crib and her parents were so tired. After they put her to bed, it was easy for me to rock her crib for her. I didn't get tired. I could help her. As the years passed, Jack and Lori realized that they weren't alone in the house. It didn't take long from there to make a connection between my funeral and when I had showed up. And I'd never been malevolent, so they weren't afraid or angry. They started to burn candles on the anniversary of my death day. They left an empty chair for meals and holidays. I really felt like a member of the family. Someone is trying to force the door. It's Lori's ex. He's obsessive. He's angry. He's going to hurt the family. My family. The thing about ghosts is that the more offerings you get, the stronger you become. I'd been enjoying candles, trinkets, and even the occasional food item for the past 5 years. I was strong from that. The knife feels warm in my hand, a shock of heat against the ice of my skin. Lori, Jack, and Lily are my family. I care about them, and they're not gonna join me yet. I wish to know all 6,500 languages, now I regret it. I should have wished to be rich, but felt it was too self-serving. I should have wished for fame, but felt I'd lose privacy. I should have wished for world peace, but felt one country's peace could be another country's poverty. I cursed the day I met the Wishmaster, and even more so for the perfect wish I thought I'd come up with. I would like to become a master of language. The Wishmaster hesitated and asked, of every language. I nodded. The wish was educational in nature, so it couldn't have been purely vanity pushing me to become an expert linguist. The wish could not possibly affect anyone adversely, for it truly only affected me. The sole purpose of the wish was to further communication and perhaps close the global gap just a bit by having someone act as a language liaison. How long does it take for somebody to become a master at something? Confused, I responded with, I guess. I mean, 10,000 hours of deliberate, focused practice is the rumor. The Wishmaster went silent. Then, 10,000 hours of deliberate, focused practice, and you'd be a master at language. I suppose so, but that's only considering one language at 10,000 hours, right? I shrugged but agreed. I was unsure where this was headed until I noticed the wind slowing to a stop. A stillness. The ambient white noise of the city was now deafening silence, and suddenly, I was whisked from being face to face with the Wishmaster and into my own study, armed with a pen, pad of paper, English dictionary with the door shuttering locked. Again confused, I asked aloud to no one in particular, what's going on? Why am I in my house and why do I have a dictionary in front of me? A disembodied voice responded, this is to give you the deliberate, focused practice you need. I figure English will be the easiest since you already speak it. I'm sorry, I don't understand what's going on. I wanted to be a master at every language. What does this have to do with anything? The voice ignored. From there, we can move language by language in alphabetical order. I hope you're looking forward to Afrikaans after this first 10,000 hours. And the Wishmaster has been silent ever since. I should have wished to be rich, for fame, for world peace. Instead, I'm frozen in time, studying until the Wishmaster deems me an expert. If the metric is 10,000 hours, that's a little over a year for each language. This may be fine. I mean, how many world languages can there really be? I found a note that I don't remember writing. It was taped to the bathroom mirror, at my eye level, covering up my reflection. 5 words. Don't look under the bed. I peeled it off the mirror and looked down at it. It was in my handwriting, my sloppy, chicken scratch handwriting. More sloppy than usual, like I'd been in a rush. I turned it over in my hands, confused. Don't look under the bed. I didn't remember writing it at all. Maybe I wrote it when I was half asleep. Weird. I walked back into the bedroom. Nothing looked amiss, just my blue-gray comforter, bunched up on one side. My pillow askew, a cup of water and my phone on the nightstand. I began to crouch down. Arf, arf. I ran down the stairs to find Sadie, scratching at the back door. You need to go out, huh? I glanced up at the clock, 12:23 p.m. How did I sleep so late? I let her out, then headed towards the kitchen. But as I got closer, the sour smell of decay hit my nostrils. Oh, no. My heart stopped as I stepped in. Red everywhere, splattered up the sides of the cabinets. Pooling across the floor, I sucked in a breath to scream, and then spotted the jar of marinara. It was shattered in the middle of the floor. Red sauce splattered in every direction from that central point, covering half the kitchen. And as I looked around, there was the source of the smell, an open package of ground beef on the counter. Beside it sat a half-diced onion on the cutting board, a teaspoonful of kosher salt. 2 wine glasses, one half drunk, sat on the kitchen table, along with my wallet and keys. Did I have Henry over last night? Arf. Sadie's bark tore me from my thoughts. I let her in and then collapsed on the couch. What happened last night? I muttered. Maybe I hit my head. Maybe I dropped the marinara sauce, slipped in it, and hit my head on the floor. Got a concussion, went up to my bedroom, and fell asleep. But then wouldn't there be sauce in the bed? I sighed and pulled out my phone. I'd give my boyfriend Henry a call and see if he remembered anything. But as soon as I unlocked my phone, I saw the notification. 1 new voicemail. A chill ran down my spine. I called into the voicemail service and waited, chewing on my lip. Listen to me. My blood ran cold. It was my voice. As soon as you get up, get out of the house. Take Sadie and get out. And whatever you do, do not look under the bed. That was it. That was the whole message. A powerful feeling of derealization hit me. You probably know the feeling I'm talking about, that nothing is real. My entire life has been a dream. No one exists but me. It's usually just an intrusive thought. But now I felt like it was grabbing me by the shoulders and shaking me. I don't remember anything. Is this even real? Am I dreaming? I forced myself off that train of thought and dialed Henry's number. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. It went to voicemail. Why aren't you picking up? I growled into the phone. The one time I need you. That was just like Henry. I slipped the phone back into my pocket and stared at Sadie. She stared back at me with her big, brown eyes. Get out of the house. Do not look under the bed. I forced myself up off the couch. Okay, we're going to the dog park. Sadie sped by me like a bullet. Hands shaking, I grabbed my laptop, a few other necessities, and shoved them into my bag. I pulled the strap over my shoulder, dialed Henry one more time, and prayed for him to pick up. No, there was a sound from upstairs. The sound of a ringing phone. Every muscle in my body froze. With shaking hands, I pressed the red end call button on my phone. A second later, the ringing ceased. Oh God, no. I stepped onto the first stair. The old wood creaked underneath me. I took another step, then another, until I was standing motionless in the hallway. Don't look under the bed. I stepped forward. My hand shook as I reached for the doorknob, twisted it, pulled it open. I stepped in the room. It looked as it always had. The same comforter, the same items on the nightstand. Everything the same. My gaze flicked to the dark shadows underneath the bed. With shaking hands, I pulled out my phone and dialed Henry again. Please don't ring. Please don't. It rang from under the bed. My throat went dry. I slowly crouched down, my entire body shaking like a leaf. My heart pounded as my hands splayed against the carpet, balancing myself. Please, no. It was him. His skin was pale, almost blue. The mattress pressed into his tall frame, as if he'd been shoved and kicked under there until he fit. And his eyes were empty and lifeless, boring into me as though he knew what I'd done. I ran over to the bathroom and puked, wiped my face off, gripped the bathroom sink to keep myself from fainting. Did I kill him? The half-drunk wine glass. Did I poison him? That had to be it. There was no blood. But why? Why did I do it? What happened last night? What? Arf. Sadie's bark was like a shock of cold water. I have to get out of here. I ran down the stairs. She was pawing at the front door. Just a second, I said as I stumbled back towards the kitchen. I need to get the keys. I ran back into the kitchen. I carefully stepped around the shards of broken glass, the splatters of tomato sauce. I reached out for the keys, and then something hit me. Not quite a memory, more of an intuition, a gut feeling. Like the memory was poking up from my subconscious, about to break the surface. The salt. I ran over to the teaspoon of salt lying on the counter, next to the cutting board. Slowly bent over so that it was eye level. It wasn't salt. I could see that now. It wasn't the coarse, irregular flakes of kosher salt I kept in a pig by the stove. It was a fine powder. And it smelled terrible. The memory hit me like a truck. Getting out of the shower, putting on a vampy lipstick, poking my head into the kitchen while Henry was making dinner for our 1-month anniversary, stopping dead as he swirled white powder into the wine glass, backing up, mind reeling, almost fainting, stumbling forward and hearing him call out my name. Carrie, you there? I walked in, pretending I didn't see anything. And he bought it. I knew that the glass of wine he offered me with a smile had something in it. Whether it was a date rape drug or poison, I didn't know. But I did know this. If I let on that I knew, if I tried to call the police, I might not make it out of there alive. So when he turned to finish chopping the onion, I switched the glasses. I wavered in the kitchen, black dots dancing in my vision. Then I sucked in a breath and walked to the front door, where Sadie stood waiting for me. Come on, I said, as I opened the door. Let's go. You've actually read this before, I just made sure you forgot. A friend of mine, when he was 15, he became fascinated with wizardry. From the outside, it looked like he just really needed a girlfriend, or perhaps a new hobby, preferably one that wasn't imaginary. But then one afternoon, he invited me up to his room, stabbed my index finger with a needle, and mixed it into this strange broth. Anytime I tried to speak or clear my throat, I got side-eyed and ordered to remain quiet until the experiment was complete. Just as I was about to suggest he speak with the school counselor, an orb of white light appeared in the middle of the room, hovering directly between us. It wasn't a trick or a prank, far as I could tell. I just sat there, dumbfounded. So this friend of mine, he explained this forbidden science was fueled by pain, which is why he jabbed my finger. For the next 6 hours he showed off incredible tricks and then asked if I wanted to learn. Within 2 weeks we were both practicing behind the bike sheds at school, or in my dad's shack. We agreed if anybody caught us, we'd say we were making out or doing drugs, anything except the truth. It wasn't long before we reached the limits of what you can accomplish by slicing open your own palm. But now we had what the books described as the hunger, a thirst for power. Around the neighborhood people stared at us, whispered about the losers who broke into the country park after dark and mixed potions. So this old Fogy, a real busybody neighborhood watch type, he whipped together a mob one night and came after us. My friend and I had no choice other than to use our newfound abilities for self-defense. Around us lay 16 humans, each clinging to life by a thread. 16 potential fuel cells. We thought we'd hit the mother lode. We were wrong. All of a sudden, detectives started breathing down our necks. People wanted answers about what happened to their neighbors, their husbands, their sons. Seeing no other choice, we created a powerful elixir that made the entire neighborhood forget these individuals, that anybody ever lived in those empty houses. Unfortunately, this all but depleted our reserves. It clearly wasn't a sustainable method of harvesting pain. That's when my buddy made a suggestion. We could operate with a much lower profile. All we needed was a single battery. One victim whose agony we would siphon for hours on end, then simply make them forget the experience. That way, we could do it all again the next day, and the day after that, and the day after that. But to get the most out of the process, we needed to ramp up the victim's dread beforehand. To tenderize the meat, so to speak. So, if you haven't figured it out yet, I hope you've been sitting comfortably, because we're about to get started. My girlfriend talks in her sleep. She's been saying the most horrible things recently, and then I heard her once more. Sorry if this spoils your plans. She began laughing. The two of you were supposed to walk that trail again. She started. I wasn't even remotely prepared for what she'd say next. You'd both be so tired when you'd reach the top. You'd look over the city. Then you'll get on one knee and bring out the ring. She began laughing. And that's when I realized this wasn't just a problem with sleep talking. It was something much more, something supernatural. I had never told anybody about my proposal fantasy. There was simply no way she could have known about any of it. This was no longer about merely talking in one's sleep. This was about possession. I can't go back into the bedroom. I have no idea what would happen if I did. Instead, I'm going to wait it out, holding up in my living room until the sun rises. I have a couple more hours yet. I can hear her laughing occasionally in the bedroom. It's still not her voice. But as I sit on my couch writing this out, here's what scares me the most. Maybe my infatuation and utter obsession with her wasn't normal. I said before that I felt like I was losing control of myself more so I believed in the typical falling in love story. No, I fear that the infatuation I felt was the entity slowly taking control of me, of it controlling my thoughts, fears, ambition, and anxieties. Maybe once I become completely absorbed, a transfer would occur and she would be free of it. I know I should leave, that I should open the front door, get in my car and drive away from here, but I can't leave her. I've already lost control. I'm infatuated with her, utterly infatuated. But as I sit on my couch writing this out, here's what scares me the most. Maybe my infatuation and utter obsession with her wasn't normal. I said before that I felt like I was losing control of myself. More so I believed in the typical falling in love story. No, I fear that the infatuation I felt was the entity slowly taking control of me, of it controlling my thoughts, fears, ambitions, and anxieties. Maybe once I become completely absorbed, a transfer would occur and she would be free of it. I know I should leave, that I should open the front door, get in my car, and drive away from here. But I can't. I can't leave her. I've already lost control. I'm infatuated with her, utterly infatuated. I had a disturbing conversation with my 7-year-old daughter. I took another sip of tea and frowned. That wasn't good. I didn't mind the neighbors chatting to my little girl, but I didn't like the thought of them inviting her in. not without us there, not even if they were just kind, lonely old men. I made up my mind to go round and visit Mr. Henderson later and to tell him that myself, kindly, of course, but firmly. In the end, though, I didn't get a chance, because a few moments after I'd had the thought, Rosie said something else. Something that pushed everything else from my mind and ended any idea I might have had about going over to Mr. Henderson's house. She said something that made me feel cold. Daddy, please don't stop me playing in the garden. I promise I won't sneak out again. I don't want the zombie to get me. Rosie, I'm not going to stop you playing in the garden. But you have to make me a couple of promises, too. First, promise me you'll stop going around calling people zombies. Mr. Henderson might be old, but he's not one of the living dead. Rosie frowned. I didn't. What do you mean, you didn't? You just ran in here a moment ago calling him one. No, I didn't. Mr. Henderson's not a zombie. I saw the zombie in his house, but it wasn't him. I frowned. I had the mug raised to my lips to take another sip of tea, but now I put it down again. What do you mean, sweetheart? You saw someone else in his house? Yeah, the zombie, Dad. I could see it pressed against his little basement window while I was talking to him. Cold fingers ran up my spine. What? Yeah, it was really scary. Its face was all bashed up and bloody, and its mouth was open, like it was screaming at me. But do you know what confused me most, Dad? I tried to keep my voice steady. What? Well, I didn't realize kids could be zombies, too. I thought it was only grown-ups. But I guess I must have been wrong, because the one in Mr. Henderson's basement looked just like a little boy. I'm a search and rescue officer for the U.S. Forest Service. I have some stories to tell. One of the scariest things I've ever had happen to me involved the search for a young woman who'd gotten separated from her hiking group. We were out until late at night because the dogs had picked up her scent. When we found her, she was curled up under a large rotted log. She was missing her shoes and pack, and she was clearly in shock. She didn't have any injuries, and we were able to get her to walk with us back to base ops. Along the way, she kept looking behind us and asking us why that big man with black eyes was following us. We couldn't see anyone, so we just wrote it off as some weird symptom of shock. But the closer we got to base, the more agitated this woman got. She kept asking me to tell him to stop making faces at her. At one point she stopped and turned around and started yelling into the forest, saying that she wanted him to leave her alone. She wasn't going to go with him, she said, and she wouldn't give us to him. We finally got her to keep moving, but we started hearing these weird noises coming from all around us. It was almost like coughing, but more rhythmic and deeper. It was almost insect-like. I don't really know how else to describe it. When we were within sight of base ops, the woman turns to me, and her eyes are about as wide as I can imagine a human could open them. She touches my shoulder and says he says to tell you to speed up. He doesn't like looking at the scar on your neck. I have a very small scar on the base of my neck, but it's mostly hidden under my collar, and I have no idea how this woman saw it. Right after she says it, I hear that weird coughing right in my ear, and I just about jumped out of my skin. I hustled her to ops, trying not to show how freaked out I was, but I have to say I was really happy when we left the area that night. This is the last one I'll tell, and it's probably the weirdest story I have. Now, I don't know if this is true in every SAR unit, but in mine, it's sort of an unspoken, regular thing we run into. You can try asking about it with other SAR officers, but even if they know what you're talking about, they probably won't say anything about it. We've been told not to talk about it by our superiors, and at this point we've all gotten so used to it that it doesn't even seem weird anymore. On just about every case where we're really far into the wilderness, I'm talking 30 or 40 miles, at some point we'll find a staircase in the middle of the woods. It's almost like if you took the stairs in your house, cut them out, and put them in the forest. I asked about it the first time I saw some, and the other officer just told me not to worry about it, that it was normal. Everyone I asked said the same thing. I wanted to go check them out, but I was told, very emphatically, that I should never go near any of them. I just sort of ignore them now when I run into them because it happens so frequently. I have a lot more stories, and I suppose if anyone's interested, I'll tell some of them tomorrow. If anyone has any theories about the stairs, or if you've seen them too, let me know. The creepy man I saw through my night vision scope. No shoes, pants or anything. I remember being disturbed by his movements, like a squirrel or something. Twitchy and grabbing at the foliage, sniffing around and palming the tree. Was that my tree? The one I'd been leaning against earlier. The thought terrified me. Could he smell me? Then he did something I still have nightmares about today. He squatted and placed his hands in the dirt between his feet and stared straight up like a dog mid-howl. And I heard it, a voice coming from that direction, a very compelling female voice. Help, I'm lost. There was a long pause, but neither of us moved a muscle. The center of my sights was trained at the dirt in front of his feet. I couldn't bring myself to aim directly at another person. It went against everything I'd been taught about firearms. Were they lost? Was this some guy that had gone crazy out here? Why was his voice so feminine? Help, please, I can't walk. The voice called out. That's when I called bullshit. Not only could he walk, when I first saw him he was traversing the land with ease for a naked person, so good I mistook him for a bear. That's a fucking trap. This guy is trying to lure me to him with a damsel in distress routine. Luckily the lack of activity before had caused me to pack up most of my gear. I think I may have left behind a hat and a sitting pad, but I didn't give a shit in that moment. I took my eyes off him for a moment to get my pack on. I buckled my chest strap and scrambled for my rifle. To my horror, he was in the same position but his face was staring in my direction and I swear I saw a smile. The thermal scope has an effect that makes animals' eyes appear white. How the hell had he heard me get up and put my gear on? He must have easily been 150 yards away. Fuck off. I screamed in that direction. He stood upright and it hit me how tall and skinny he was. Easily 6 feet and very lean. He took a couple of long strides in my direction and I instinctively sent a round sailing above his head into the tree line. He was freaky as hell, but he hadn't really threatened me. What would I tell the cops? I was unwilling and unready to shoot someone. He stopped dead in his tracks and hunched down on all fours. The next one will fuck you up. Go away. He stayed on all fours and this time I had my sights trained on the center of him. His eyes were just above the grass like a large cat or something. I was trying to stop my trembling and knew that my voice had cracked a little on that last warning. I was terrified. That standoff probably only lasted a minute or two, maybe less, but it felt like forever. In an instant he bolted left towards the tree line opposite the road. So much for not being able to walk. I could barely keep him in my scope, he was moving so fast. He disappeared into the brush and I sent another bullet sailing high in his direction. I racked another round and tried to pocket that mag and swap for a fresh one, but I dropped it and didn't bother looking for it. I wasn't far from my truck and I wanted to get out of there. I could hear him in the distance, yelling in this weird sound that could have been a laugh or a cry. I scrambled up the trail and arrived at my truck breathless. I tossed my gear into the cab but kept the rifle in the passenger seat and sped off. For the longest time I told that story from the perspective of having spotted some deranged crackhead living off the land like some kind of caveman. I reported it to Fish and Game, but all they did was scold me for hunting at night alone. Never received an update. It wasn't until I told this story at a camping trip that my nephew told me about wendigos, rakes, and skinwalkers. My story scared the piss out of him because the spot we were camping was technically the same forest I'd seen the bastard, just 50 miles east of it. He was so spooked his mom had to take him home. She was really pissed. I've gone down the rabbit hole on these scary stories. I'm not saying what I saw definitely was a wendigo or a skinwalker. I'm saying that if such a thing exists, I may have dodged quite the bullet that night. Or maybe it was just a tweaker being Donnie Thornberry in the middle of the night. Either way, thought I'd share. My friend gave me some weird pills and I regret taking them. Update, alright. So it's been a few more hours. The hallucinations are still happening. He keeps telling me this is real and that he's sorry. This is the weirdest trip of my life. The room is darker now. I guess those candles did help. The deep giggling in the room has turned into a low hum. It's almost song-like. Kevin and I are sitting next to each other on the couch. He keeps guiltily looking at me. The tall demon-like creatures are illuminating the center of the room. They're huddled in a circle, standing near the candles. A crimson red light is emanating from where they stand. They're speaking in a language I can't understand. One of them looks different from the others. It's reading from a book. It periodically turns its head to look at me. I'm just trying to ignore what's happening in front of me. Kevin hasn't gotten up since he finished arranging the candles. When he isn't looking at me and apologizing, he's whispering some prayers under his breath. To everyone in the comments who is saying that Kevin isn't lying and this is indeed a demonic ritual, you're definitely not helping me feel any better. I'm hoping I can come down from this soon and laugh about how crazy this trip was. But, on the insane chance that this is actually real and I've been pulled into some fucked up ritual, how do I get out of this? What's strong enough to smash a sturdy window, if it came to it? Now follow up soon. Edit 2. Kevin's been emotional over the last while. I finally asked him what the fuck all of this was. This is what he said. 5 years ago, I came to the cabin alone to find some center. Life was okay, but it wasn't as good as I wanted it to be. No matter how hard I worked, it felt like I kept bumping into some ceilings I couldn't overcome. That's when they approached me. They told me that they could help me obtain the life of my dreams. Everything that I wanted to happen. They said there'd be a trade-off in the future. They made me sign something with my blood. I didn't really think it'd work out, but it did. And life has been amazing. And I wanted to stay amazing. But they told me that I now need to honor the contract. They want my life, man. My perfect fucking life. I can't throw it away. I don't want to die. And so, as the day came closer, I asked them if they were open to an adjustment on the arrangement. If I found another soul, would they give me another 5 years? They seemed intrigued, and they told me to bring a replacement. And so you fucking brought me. I responded. I needed to find someone who would be comfortable coming all the way out here with me. When I thought about everyone in my life, I tried to pick someone who the fewest people would miss. And it was you, man. I'm sorry. Fuck. That was a gut punch. You're not really utilizing your life to its full potential, man. I always told you, so I'm really sorry that. He kept going, but I just tuned it out. He was going back and forth between being apologetic and justifying his decision to make me a fucking sacrifice. I look out at the room with my heart racing. The low chant is louder than it's ever been before. The demons standing in the middle of the room are all looking at me now. The one holding the book approaches me. Fuck. The demon opens the book and holds it out in front of me. On the page are signals and insignias I can't understand. You need to sign with your blood. Here, use this, Kevin says. He holds out a small razor blade and hands it to me. I'm not gonna do this, I say back. You have to. Deep down, I'd known it since I stepped foot in the cabin. This wasn't a trip. I shouldn't have been in denial this whole time. And now, there's a demon in front of me holding out a book. I hear the low hum in my head. The room lights up, bright crimson. I thought about taking the razor blade and slicing Kevin's throat. But, if this was truly the end of the line for me, I didn't know if committing one last sin before death would tip the scales for me to go to heaven, if such a place even exists. I'm not sure if I was fully in control when I sliced my finger and let the blood spill over the book. It happened, and I thought I'd immediately be pulled into hell, or devoured by the ghoulish creatures in a painful fashion. Instead, the demon closed the book and returned to the center of the room with others, standing by the candles. I told Kevin that I was gonna run for it. that I hope these fucking beings, whatever the hell they are, torture him for the rest of eternity. He told me that if I tried to escape after signing the agreement, that I'd be put through a fate worse than death. Fuck that. I'm not gonna believe the guy that brought me here to save his own sorry self. I might be a degenerate, but I'm not a narcissistic evil lunatic. Asshole. I'm typing this on a phone that is now covered with blood. I sliced my finger deeper than I should have. It's still bleeding. Kevin and the demons have been rearranging the candles in the center of the room. The cabin is noisy, a mix of loud hums, chants, screams, and low giggles. The ritual is building to its climax. Kevin just finished organizing the candles. You need to come to the center of the room and lie down in the middle of the candles. This is the end, now. I'm sorry, man. I'm scanning the room one last time for anything that can save me. Any Deus Ex Machina or last-minute escape plan I can muster up. There's no safe rooms, no exits. The doors aren't going to work. They're all waiting for me. All I see is a vase beside the couch, and some large logs in the fireplace. I need to pick one to smash the window with. I'm gonna make a break for it. Edit 3, I did it. I fucking escaped. I picked the vase and it actually worked. I smashed the window, and I jumped out to escape the cabin. As I was jumping out, I could feel an immense force pulling me back in. The sound of the demons in my head, with their low hums turning into loud screams. But I made it. As I was running further and further away, I could hear Kevin's blood-curdling shrieks. They sounded inhumane. I guess the demons defaulted to their original agreement. Yes, I'm bleeding all over. The glass from the broken window scraped the hell out of me during my escape. And yes, I really don't know where the fuck I am. But I'm out, and freedom feels good. I've got a new lease on life now. Not gonna take anything for granted anymore. I'm gonna pursue my dreams. Gonna make something of myself. So, I might need some help from commenters. Concrete, Washington is fucking weird. I've been running for the last half hour in what feels like a never-ending forest. It just keeps going. And the forest looks bizarre. The trees look different from any I've ever seen in my life before. Also, not sure if some sort of astrological event is happening tonight, but the whole sky is glowing crimson red. In every direction I look. That's the same for you guys too, right? I'm gonna keep running. I'll find a way home. I always do. This is gonna be my last update. If you can spare a moment, hold a positive thought in your minds for me.
Edit. Go odd news. I have escaped. It's good. All okay. THX, it's all okay. Don't ever worry.
Someone broke into my house and tried to find me. A moment later, the closet door was ripped open. I was crouched in my attic just a foot or so away from the access, so I could try to stop them if they started to climb up. From my vantage point, all I could see was from about their knee down. They were wearing dirty blue jeans with frayed cuffs and worn work boots. After a few seconds of looking in the closet, they stepped away and I heard a loud crash come from my room, followed by a scream of frustration and anger. That scream was the most unnerving part of the incident for me. It reminded me far too much of my stepfather, who would scream in a similar way when he lost his temper. He would eventually be put in a mental hospital for several mental disorders that resulted in erratic and violent tendencies. The man in my house ran back down the stairs. I heard crashes and clatters as things were thrown around and furniture was knocked over. I stayed crouched in the attic. I had left my cell phone when I ran for the closet, and I wasn't certain I could climb down without him hearing. After some time, the noises stopped. I started counting slowly. When I reached 1,000, I decided it was safe enough to climb down and call the police. The first thing I noticed when I exited the closet was the intruder had flipped my bed over, I assume in an attempt to find me. That was the loud noise I had heard after he stepped away from the closet. I couldn't find my cell phone, so I went to the landline by the bed and called the police. I waited in my room until I heard them call out from downstairs. The first floor was a mess, but I had expected that. Chairs had been knocked over, the sofa had been flipped. All the books, pictures, and knickknacks I had on my shelves were strewn across the floor. The cupboards in the kitchen had been opened and all the boxed and canned foods had been thrown to the ground. As far as I could tell though, the only thing missing was a single knife out of the wooden block in my kitchen. The police checked the house from top to bottom. They found that the side door had been forced open by something like a crowbar. They also found a few cigarette butts along my fence line, along with some foil and an empty pen tube, which the police said people often used to smoke meth, so they think he had been watching my house for a while. I realized that he must have been out there smoking a cigarette when I got home. They collected up the evidence and told me I should stay with family or friends that night and get that door fixed as soon as possible. I opted to just not sleep. I moved a shelf over to block the broken door and spent the next couple hours cleaning things up. I would often go to the window with a flashlight and shine it along the fence line where the police found the cigarette butts and foil, but I didn't see anything. The next day I called to have the door fixed and motion lights installed at the back and sides of my house. I ran a phone cable up into the attic and added a landline. I never wanted to be stuck up there without a phone again. Nothing else happened at that house though. I lived there another 3 years without incident. One more precaution I took was practicing getting out of my bed, going to my closet, and climbing into the attic as quickly and quietly as possible. I even kept at it when I moved, except now I go to a crawl space at the back of the closet instead of the attic. I try not to think about what would have happened if I had been a bit slower getting to the attic, or if he hadn't gone into the bathroom at the end of the hall first.